And so what is next? Now, we cannot not have a session on this because it's come up so much, not least in the previous one. Cecilia talked about it. This is all about health trends. This is critical. What can be done in terms of the digital transformation in health and e-health? So we're going to look at future health trends, how technology is and will, well, future will transform medicine. I think you'll all agree that the future is here. So that's why I'm always a bit funny about which tense I put it in. Here to tell you more about it and moderate a chat with three eloquent speakers is European technology reporter for Bloomberg, Jillian Deutsch. So a very, very warm welcome to you. I'm going to stand up. Hopefully you can see me in the light. Yeah, come join me. Yeah, thank you. Yes, a warm round of applause to you. Before I leave you to it in your capable hands, tell me, what's this panel about in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, we obviously have seen so much with the COVID pandemic, with such a marvelous uptake of digital health. I mean, just go onto your phone, you obviously have a COVID pass that you needed to get in today, for those of us who are actually here present. So as a former health reporter and as a current tech reporter, I'm so excited to be talking about where we're at, what the hurdles are to the uptake of technology in health, but where we're headed.
Perfect. I'm going to grab that from behind you and I'm going to leave you the seat so I can take my notes and scribble. Do you need, you've got your own iPad?
I've got my own iPad, thank you.
Yeah, that would be a bit rubbish if we touch. See you again. Thank you very much. I leave you to it.
Thank you so much. Well, I have not moderated a panel in person for quite some time, so it's nice to actually see so many faces in the room. And obviously we have more people online, so welcome. Like I said, I'm very excited to be hosting this conversation. We're talking about my two loves, tech and health. And how they really can come together to really transform the future of our healthcare systems and of our medicine. For this panel, we have three brilliant speakers. First online, we have Isabelle Zablit. She is the eHealth Europe and International Director at the French Ministry of Health. You can see her online. Thank you so much, Isabelle, for being here from Paris. Next, we have Francesco Buonarroti. He is the Chief Information Officer at Janssen, which is a division of Johnson & Johnson. He is here in the room. Welcome, Francesco. And next, we have Nicolas Monsarrat, who is the Managing Director at Accenture Health and the Digital Health Europe lead. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for being here. I'm going to get things started with a rapid fire question. Basically, it's a bit of a challenge to start things off, but I would like to know, in one word, what do you think is the one thing holding the EU back the most from fully using digital health? Again, in one word, what is holding the EU back from taking advantage of the full potential of digital health? Do we have any brave souls who want to kick things off?
Sure, trust.
Trust. Mm-hmm.
Trust from the people.
Isabelle, for you?
And trust, for sure.
Interesting. Okay.
No doubt.
So no debate here. Trust is a massive problem. Isabelle, I want to start off with you first. We obviously saw unprecedented levels of coordination between EU countries throughout the COVID pandemic, especially on the tech side, but it definitely didn't start off that way. Can you first kind of kick things off by walking us through how the COVID pandemic evolved in terms of coordination and especially where things stood on the tech side?
Well, in fact, yes, the pandemic has been a tremendous window of opportunity. Unfortunately, I have to say, to provide the right visibility, I would say, on the rationale behind the digital health coordination in Europe. So this was indeed something quite unexpected, exceptional, but something we've been working on for many years, and that was the really good thing, because it allowed Europe to be in the starting to be extremely ready to start with a very reactive, proactive sometimes reaction, and I think that Europe has been doing a tremendous job on that. Maybe if I can tell you in a few words, I'll take the example of the EU COVID certificate. It was an incredible job in a only 12 months time frame. We were able to do something at European level that was something that everybody would have said impossible prior to the pandemic. And we made it possible because we made it happen. In 12 weeks' time, we did agree on scope, definition, and objectives of a EU COVID certificate. And it wasn't an easy journey. And referring to trust, this is also a key learning point because we started by putting the ethical standpoint really as a starting point of this journey. So in a 12 weeks time, again, we agreed on a regulation. We agreed on technical guidelines, which are open source, by the way, and we moved to implementation. So 12 weeks time, coordination of 27 countries, and in closer work also with the World Health Organization. It was quite a stuff. And now, if you look at what happened next, we moved to implementation. It allowed the freedom again in Europe and beyond Europe, and it made the EU digital COVID certificate as an international standard because currently we have more than 60 countries which are interoperable thanks to that work. So it was, I would say, an ambitious, but at the same time, a very humble project, because it's very humble towards the, if you look at the challenges that we face in health currently. But this humble project has showed the way, has paved the way for a next ambition. And it has also put confidence in every stakeholder that Europe was the right level, that Europe was able to do it. And this is very important to bear in mind because I'd like to remind at this point also that the fact that health is not a European topic. It's a national responsibility. And so we made it happen despite the fact that there wasn't, I would say, a per se organization in place. We have the chance to have the cross-border healthcare directive in Europe, which has allowed for a first level of coordination through the eHealth network, where I am representing France together with the other 26 countries. It's a voluntary network, and it is co-chaired by both the European Commission and member states, and this is currently co-chaired by the Netherlands. So they have been doing a tremendous job, and from the idea to reality in a few weeks' time, I think this is something we can keep in the school books for the future as an initial example and how we are going to work. And it's also paving the way for the next stage of the ambition of coordination at European level, which is the European Health Data Space, as you may know. And this is a regulation. The first draft of the regulation is expected in the coming weeks. It will be proposed by the European Commission. And in France, we are going to be frontline because due to the fact that we are currently under the French presidency of the Council of the EU, we'll have to orchestrate the work around this regulation. And this is also a regulation that is also exceptional by the fact that we have bits of and large bits of the regulation already in place. We have this regulation is going to cover both primary and secondary use of data, so the patient path in care and the reuse of data. Currently, for the first part, the primary use of data, we already have a lot of countries live on MyHealth.eu, which is the supranational, at least European coordination of care in Europe. It means that all health professionals by 2025 will have the possibility to access patient records in their language. So it means that we have interoperable patient records, but also translated records. So it's really a must for the patient to be handled in the best way in Europe, wherever the patient is. So it's a very, both the EU COVID certificate and what is done currently with MyHealth.eu are very concrete examples of what services Europe is able to provide to the citizens using digital health. So it's really good.
I do want to move on to some of these kind of trust questions, but really quick, I mean, you did talk about how you mentioned that health is obviously not an EU competence. I mean, when the pandemic first began, we did see countries really retreating into themselves and not being the most kind to their neighbors. And eventually we did start to see, some patients actually going cross-border. But you mentioned this kind of joke that was going on at very early stages of the pandemic, where yes, we were able to transport patients, but if, I don't know if you want to continue that, what you were saying behind
Well,
that.
I'm quite brutal about it, but we were able to transfer patients, but we weren't able to transfer the patient data at this point of time. And this is something that the citizen can't accept any longer in the current context. It's something that is very difficult for the citizen to understand. So what I refer to with my health at EU is really going to provide the right answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about this COVID pass and what works, because all of you mentioned that trust is such a massive problem. And I remember when the Commission first proposed the COVID pass, we thought, oh, this is never going to work out. People are never going to download this and actually use this. But we've seen, obviously, that is not the case. Francesco, what have you learned from the COVID passes that you think is something we can move forward with when it comes to European data space and other?
I want to go a bit broader than the pass. I think what we have seen is research and development, that the collaboration between academic, public, and private in order to solve the problem, and leaving that from an industry side and a collaboration that we have never seen before. I think we are here today also to look about the opportunities and the why we are here. And I think we see, and we are all now data experts. Everyone is following data, et cetera, every day, how many people infected, et cetera. But we see a convergence in general of human biology and technology that we have never seen before. And this is the opportunity that we have. That's why we are here. And that's, I think, COVID was just, unfortunately, was bringing to light the public. And I want to go beyond the opportunity. I think we were in record time. We had vaccinations that for people that live in the healthcare sectors was in time that you never thought was possible. But there are a lot of opportunities. You have a lot of opportunity of reimagining the full value chain of healthcare, starting from a discovery process. Also, how to identify patients for clinical trials for rare disease. How do you look at your supply chain? How you look at diagnostic? How you can intercept and not the cure? So, and all is based on data. And how good are your data? And how good technology and science come together, and how we can solve the problem. I think that's we go now to some of the obstacles that Isabelle was mentioning, and I think we want to see, most probably, also we see example, and that's very encouraging. But I think we need a very strong, ambitious, and cohesive European policy. And we see, very good best practice in Finland. We have a very best practice there. So we have in Estland, we have a momentum in France. We sense a momentum in Germany. I hope we have this cohesive policy that doesn't leave any countries behind. I think from a researcher perspective, what you need is clear implementation and interpretation of rules, which is consistent. And everyone most probably in the room knows that we have GDPR, which is a good thing, but then we had 27 interpretation of GDPR that makes very difficult for researchers to work with. We have a very complicated healthcare system, different in every state member. We have data, but they are all siloed somewhere and not interoperable. And then we still have we see some standards, but there is no standard that is at this point in time is putting forward. And yeah, also from, I think, the business side, the industry side, the researcher side, we welcome the European health data space as an opportunity to create a framework with the hope that we will have fair data, so meaning findable, accessible, reusable, interoperable. That's the wish. And I go a step beyond what we have learned in COVID and beyond the COVID pass, is that the process of research to beat the toughest disease of the world is not a single national process. It's a very international process. You need the best brain to come together, the best brain of science, the best brain of technology. And for sure, at the moment, we are facing some of, we have to halt of the policymaker on regulating international data flows. There is some encouraging part in European Union, but towards the US, it's difficult with the invalidation of the privacy shield. I'm representing here the biggest healthcare company in the world, and I see the amount of resource that we put in trying to have a secure legal framework when we work. How can you imagine that a startup can deal with? How a mid-sized company can deal with? I think we have to encourage also to also bring innovation, because innovation can come from everywhere.
Absolutely. And I do want to get to some of these standardization questions where the GDPR is hindering some of the health research. But I do want to ask you, Nicolas, one of the things you obviously mentioned was trust in healthcare systems. Can you walk us through some of the lessons learned from the COVID pandemic?
So I said 3 words initially. I said trust and the people. So if you look at the people side, because, trust, you cannot decide that there is trust. You need to build it. And how you build trust is someone living in Naples is different from someone living in Milan, different from someone living in Helsinki. So we made at Accenture a big survey across the world, actually, including Europe, 14 countries, 12,000 people. We asked them, how do you feel about engaging digitally for your healthcare? And there are good news and bad news. So on the good news side, with the pandemic, most half of the people we surveyed said we are happy about the experience we got in healthcare during COVID. And it's a good news, are consistent with what happened before. It's good news that COVID did not change the perception there. 20%, in addition, said my experience has been better during COVID than what it was before. And only 30% said we are challenged a bit. So we see the COVID phase was a move on the positive side. There have been country-specific feedbacks. As an example, we know in the beginning of the crisis, the NHS struggled a little bit with access to care. And that's a place where we saw a little more, negative feedback from the people we surveyed. 56% said, it has decreased and it's not as good. The French case is interesting also. We did a survey over summer and people were really happy, maybe because of the success of the COVID pass and the certificate, etc. We had 75% saying the experience is good. It decreased recently, maybe different reasons because of being tired of this pass thing, but it's not about the experience, it's more the mood. So overall, people are happy. When you double click there and you look at segments, you see that the youngest segments are actually more heavier users and more satisfied. And that's interesting also to see that the people above 50, we only saw a third of them that were happy about engaging with digital technologies in healthcare. A third of them. It's also interesting to see that there are still in France today, there have been a major announcement about the national platform that went live. Around 10% of the French citizens have not submitted their email to the French public system. And therefore, we still need to speak with them in paper. So there is a divide risk there about the elderly or the non-technology savvy not being engaging there. And it's a major risk there. And that's a political risk. It's also a risk for trust, right? Because if you're not engaged in that. So need to ask there. The one final point on trust. We asked people, in different countries, what make you happy about sharing your data with others, and they came back with three priorities. The first one is talk with someone I know that will show me why it's a good thing to do so, and this someone's actually the people quoted were health professionals and pharmacists. So the human interaction is actually what people responded that would be what's needed to build trust to share my digital data. That's interesting. The second one we got was I need to get value out of sharing. So if I share, I need to get something back. That could be information about my health. Typically, if you look at the COVID apps, when adoption went up in many European countries, it's when information was starting to be sent about how many cases were in my neighborhood for me, etc. So information is the second one. And the third one is the belief that all of this is secure. But think about it, the security part comes third. Human interaction and information.
I'm curious, obviously the Commission, as Isabelle mentioned, they're going to unveil the European Health Data Space proposal, which is basically like the COVID Pass 2.0 with way more health information. Are you guys confident that people will actually use this and feel comfortable putting all their health information on an app or something? Yeah, do
quickly.
you want to answer?
Well, I think how was mentioned. I think we have to highlight the opportunities. As in, we have a Digital Europe, the DEC, which is a Digital Executive Council for Health, where we come together, technology company and health company, and I think the first paper is not the case, but was around trust. And I think we have few things that are highlighted in the paper that I want to mention. The one is that we have to make clear the opportunities. Do we want to share your data? Most probably not, but if I tell you most probably I'm going to prevent you to have Alzheimer in the future, you are more willing to share the data. So the opportunity that we show, and I mean, I'm so excited to be in the sector at the moment because there are so many opportunities at the moment, and we go to precision medicines, meaning we see treatment that will work for you and not for me. So the opportunity is there, and we have to highlight what is that part, and also for government. I believe we have in Europe the brains, the technology, the people to lead in research and development. And if we don't go there, then we might have a gap in competition with other regions of this world. The second that we were highlighting is to be human touch, patient centric, but and with a special attention to digital literacy increase. We have to explain to patients how does it work, how do we bring them there, but also to the whole healthcare stakeholders. I mean, healthcare professional. How do you trust to have to be able to understand what an artificial intelligence diagnostic machine is doing? How does it work? In order that you appreciate the health, if you are a radiologist and you have imaging that is helping you to do that job and not substituting you at that point in time. So, and third, and was mentioned already, is security by design. I think we have to build, and we can help as technology company here, so to build security by design. I know that is not a given, but I think that's the understanding, and base that on European value. We don't have to give up on your European value. I think we are proud of our value, but we have to use in the right way in order to also elevate to the region in this.
Yeah, Nicolas.
So just to add on this, it's always good to have a bad example, right, on trust. Like trust can be destroyed very easily. And there is a very interesting example in our survey in Singapore. If you think about Singapore, it's a place where, people are very technology savvy, they are young, they are used to use the technology, etc. In 2018, there has been a data breach on EMR data in Singapore. $3.5 million EMRs released and breached, including the Prime Minister's one. And that created a huge trust problem in Singapore, in a country where we would have expected everyone to be ready to share. So what has happened afterwards is that the government has launched a very significant plan to improve the trust in everything, in all the systems, the platforms, etc. And when we surveyed the people in Singapore, we asked them, who will you trust for sharing your data? And the technology provider was very, very low. So I don't want to share data with them. If you move up a little bit, health insurance, the payer, a little bit still intermediate. And the highest one, 74% of the people who were trusting them, was government, which is way higher than what we have seen elsewhere. And that was linked to specific incentives and programs led by the government to build the trust there. So if you think about it in Europe, first, we're in better shape. But if we want to stay in better shape, we need to have these security programs and launched, initiated, enforced by government, so that you build the trust from this. Another comment, and I'll stop, I swear. On the trust side, there is always a discussion about should you mandate the people to trust their data, so it's opt-out. Whatever you'll do, your data should be given to research or should be open for research. Or do you ask specific people to agree to share their data for an intent with someone? You can debate whether which is the fastest for research, right? If you get more data quickly, you will be better on the research side. But the trust might not be as the same as it is if you opt in to share your data for a purpose. And that's a big debate. The opt-out is more a Finnish strategy. The opt-in is a French strategy. So there is a lot of things to do on how to build trust a better way, and that's country specific.
Isabelle, I'm going to ask you a question just a second. But I do want to tell the audience, of course, you can send your questions to me, and I can ask these fascinating panelists as well. So I have plenty of questions, but I'd love to hear what you guys want to know as well. So I'm curious, if we're talking about trust and concerns with giving your data, your health data, to healthcare systems. France is obviously investing a lot of money into digitizing your health system. How are you guys ensuring that people feel confident that there won't be a data breach that ruins people's trust?
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you also to the other speakers, because I think we have pointed out some of the very important issues here. I'd like to say that I'd like to refer to what we've done yesterday in France under the as part of the French presidency of the Council of the EU. We had a major event, and Digital Europe was part of it, about citizenship, ethics, and health data. And this is essentially what we are talking about. It's about the trust and about the prerequisites that we need to put in place to have a smooth use of digital health. And don't forget that digital health is always there to complement what is being done by the entire healthcare system. And it's not, the objective is not to have digital health for everything and for all at every stage, but to have a smart use of it. So to come back to our event yesterday, we had the very good news, and I think it's a major step that we've been doing in Europe yesterday, because we had the commitment of the European Union from the member states and from the European Commission on European ethical principle for digital health. So those 16 principles embrace what you are referring to in terms of digital divide, but also eco-responsibility, the place of the citizen in the governance, how the use of data should be handled, and so forth. So we have 4 dimensions, 16 principles, and this is now going to be a starting point also, because we are now going to monitor this in the implementation. What does it mean? We have a humanistic tradition in Europe, and for sure we'll never provide services in digital health like other geos would do. And there is no expectation of citizens for us to do the other way around. The opposite way, if we don't do it with our European way, we won't be missing the step. We will be missing the trust of the citizen. So it was very important to formalize, so to say, what it means in reality. We have some regulations in place, but we need to go beyond regulation, because sometimes regulation also are missing the step of implementation themselves. So this is why we have formalized those principles, and we had an enormous commitment of the countries on that. So that means that those principles were existing, they weren't just formalized, and it will help a lot to communicate towards the citizen, and also to have those ethics by design projects in the future. So this is extremely important from our point of view, and it goes beyond security and interoperability, which are handled also at European level. And everything refers to a vision that we are implementing in France, by the way, which is the vision of having the state as a platform, as we tend to say. And this vision is valid also, I would say, for Europe. That means that the state or the authorities in general are putting in place the rules of the game, the standards of interoperability, for instance, the standards of security, for instance, but then all the players must comply to those rules of the game. And this is providing the trust framework that the citizen is expecting. And it also helps a lot innovation to foster, because when you have a clear framework, then entrepreneurs know where to go and with which prerequisites. So this is very important to have those principles in place, and we are very proud to have tackled this as part of the French presidency of the Council of the EU agenda, because we believe that it's a prerequisite to move forward with the European Health Data Space.
Absolutely. And I see some questions from the audience. I'm going to get to those in just a second, but one quick question for you, Francesco. We're talking about, the need for a clear framework, so companies know what's going on. We've talked a lot about people's trust, but I'm also curious, like, are you confident that countries will sign on for the European health data space, especially considering countries are very happy to interpret the GDPR in their own way?
Well, that's with us more the politic than me. We can only from our side, on one hand, see that we have best practice, see how does it work. While working in smaller country like Finland, I'm very pleased to hear and to see the movement in the past years in France and in Germany. And I think we have, from our side, together with the coalition of the willing, to show what is possible and to show how we proceed. I don't know. I mean, there's for sure there will be resistance, there will be different interpretation, but I think it's the only way forward, which I think what Isabelle was mentioning, the European values on the ground, but then move on and allow for innovation, to foster innovation, and allow Europe also to be leading in this space.
Let's see. Nicolas, I'm going to ask you the first question from our audience. What is the role for small to medium-sized developers to create health innovation in the EU?
Very large, obviously. No, the question is, how do you engage the ecosystem there as you make the transformation, right? So, and there are many kind of innovation you can find. There are very simple digital health service that can pick up incredibly well, and scale up. Dr. Lib is a good example. They're managing health agendas and appointment booking, and they are hugely successful in several countries. Very simple. You can get, in principle, right, but it's working very well. You can get a little more treatment focused or pathology focused innovation areas, like you provide coaching services, you can provide data services to anticipate chronic conditions to worsen, looking on the data. It's very focused on health focused services, virtual care kind of services. So that's another area. The third one, which I think is with a lot of potential in the future, is everything related to humans. As I said, I think the people is a key place where there will be some room to improve. That's up for being taken. We all know that the COVID will have an impact on mental health, on how people feel, on how they behave. We start seeing in some places a movement there with coaching services, with programs that helps you keep well and ensure you stay well. I think in Europe it's mostly untapped, and there is a big area there that could be served. By the way, it's good also for what we all want, which is population health outcomes at country level, right? We all know that treating people is good, but if you prevent them from being sick and requiring care, that would be good for their health, and it would be good for the system. So I think there is a big empty space there about the people's side of interaction and digital services to be provided in the European model.
Absolutely. Francesco, I have a question specifically for you. From a company perspective, what can health data, a health data space do for trustworthy AI?
Well, what a company can do from our side is clearly, well, first of all, trust, as was said, is destroyed in a second. You build years to build it up, and it's destroyed in a second to do something wrong. Therefore, the only thing we can do at this point in time is working along the rules and working as a company. And we are here at Digital Europe, and we are a member of Digital Europe, working with others to understand, to enhance the framework where we can work on along the innovation. That's what we are doing at this point in time. For sure, the fields of usage, I was just touching them. It's in the molecular discovery, method of action discovery, but you can use data science at that point in time. It's in the very important identification in clinical trials to find the right patients, etc., etc. So it's in digital twins, in supply chain, is in going real world evidence and outcome based payment together with authorities. So there is a field of application already which is identified, but how do we move the environment? I think it's not just one company, and that's also why we are here together with others to enhance the framework and to define the framework for the future to foster innovation.
Absolutely. And my last question is for Isabelle from the audience. Why is joining up health data across Europe important? Can research go ahead with the data from one member state?
Well, the use of health data in Europe is extremely important for three main, I would say, objectives. First, we have the research. And again, the pandemic has shown that Europe had to improve on that. That's first thing. Second thing, for policy making, we all have in mind also during the crisis that we were a bit lacking a common view on the data regarding the pandemic. So we have now public agencies in Europe in place, and they will be part of the European Health Data Space as nodes. And the third objective is obviously innovation, with public and private sectors being part of that. So it means also that we'll have to work more on business models regarding health data. But again, the prerequisite is obviously the trust, because if there is no trust, there is no European health data space behind.
That's a great way of wrapping that up, Isabelle. We've obviously heard so much about the potential for health in tech in the EU. And the trust has been built up so much over the COVID pandemic, and people being willing to put their vaccination, testing, data all in our apps. But like you said, Francesco, trust can be destroyed in a second. And so I think that's a really interesting lesson moving on to as we wait for the European Health Data Space, which will be coming up very soon. But I want to thank all of our panelists for being here. This has been a really interesting conversation. I could have asked many more questions about so many different things. So the first of many conversations, I hope. And thank you all for staying tuned. I think our MC is waiting in the wings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you're so spirited. It's just such a pleasure. And yes, wings, kind of wings. I was waiting there. I particularly love the statement, what I heard, innovation can come from everywhere. And I think that also echoes what Cecilia said at the beginning about it's not just about users, it's about creators. And also very interesting, trust is culturally, geographically specific, also age specific. You have a very good example about, well, they had this possibility to access the platform, but hang on a minute, they weren't all sending emails. So all of that, super, super important, really fascinating. Thank you so very much. Stay there, because I'm about to release people for lunch. And then I think if you want, we can just quickly see the illustrator, because, just so that you've got prime viewing seats there, lady and gentlemen, to see a little bit. He must be furiously doing stuff behind the scenes. And then we're going to take a 50, which camera, I can't see where the red light is on, but we're going to take a 50-minute break for lunch. So those of you who are joining remotely, that's pretty easy. You can keep an eye. Those of you here, I know it doesn't sound like loads, but you can do more networking afterwards. Why am I saying 50 minutes? Because we do have 2 commissioners coming, and I don't want to be the person at the door to sort of be keeping them waiting or suddenly find they've got to go. Okay, so please forgive us on that. We do have some fabulously rich content this afternoon. We've even got an awards ceremony. We've got obviously some very, very high level speakers, a couple more panels, and something lighthearted to kick us off. Okay, but do we have the illustrator, or is it no, we don't? Okay, that's the great thing about seeing the tech team at the back of the room. So that's it. I'm not going to take any more of your time or those of you online. Eat, tweet. Don't miss out on the virtual networking on the platform. Don't miss out on visiting the sponsor expo booths, and we will see you at 13:50 CET. Thank you so very much. Thank you.